In the spring of 2024, the Lord spoke to me on a walk about David's season and promised abundance and said I was going to be a lender and not a borrower. Now, I received that, and as that year went on, things got harder and more uncomfortable. And now I've been in a pretty hard spot financially. I've talked about this a few times on my channel for about 9 months, okay? And recently, I was on a walk and he was talking to me about stuff, and I want to share this because it really changed how I saw it and it made me understand. And this is going to tie into like a two-part message here. Number one, sometimes when God promises something, we want it to look a certain way or show up a certain way or go a certain way. And a lot of the times when we feel like things are happening opposite of what he said, then we're looking at it as, warfare or an attack or resistance or lots of other things. We can interpret things a lot of ways. But what the Lord revealed to me was, you're in your David season and you've been in your David season. And I was like, tell me more, because this is interesting. And he said, when I told you that, your mind automatically went to abundance, because he did speak abundance, because David is also known for abundance. But he said your mind went straight to abundance, which isn't necessarily wrong, because that's like the outcome of David, right? And a few years ago, like in 2021, I think, he had me do a pretty in-depth study about David's leadership, and it was really insightful. So I thought I was understanding what he was saying to me. But recently when he clarified, he was saying there were many things that you weren't considering. That if you understood what I was saying more clearly, then you would have known what I was meaning when I was saying your David season. But sometimes the Lord just lets us learn through life experiences and gives us clarity later, because if he tells us up front certain things that we will learn through the experience, we might not do it at all. We might get scared, freaked out, and just be like, I do not want to experience that. When he was like, your David season is approaching, I'm like, heck yeah, that's awesome. I receive it. And I didn't expect my life to get 10 times harder. But when he said, you didn't consider what David actually went through. Remember, he wrote a lot of the Psalms. A lot of the Psalms are lamenting. They are, where are you, God? Why are people trying to kill me, God? Why am I alone, God? Why does my life suck, God? Why is my life hard, God? Where are you? Where are you? Where are you? And I think that a lot of the times that we think that the Lord is bringing something, like I said, we want it to look a certain way, or we want the experience to be something that we enjoy or that it's comfortable. But a lot of the times the way that the Lord works is outside of our comfort zone. And that's on purpose. It's to stretch us, teach us, create dependence on him, teach us what we need to learn, not allow our pride to get in the way, to break us if we have it, and to really be able to show up as the one, right? The one who provides. He did tell me, I have it right here in my Bible, David's season, abundance, lender not a borrower. My manna season is ending, but you will continue to provide my daily needs. So he told me that day. And that has been so true. He has provided my daily needs. I mean, daily. Sometimes I'm like, I don't know how I'm even going to make it through today. But by the end of the day, when I'm going night-night, the things that I needed to handle in that day were at least handled enough to where I survived the day. Now, it might not be handled in the way that I think it should be handled. It doesn't mean that things don't get done later than I think they should be, or that things don't happen in a longer timeline than I would like. But really, it's his plan, right? This is his thing. And so it's like when we see a blessing, We don't recognize it as a blessing because it's hard, or it sucks, or we don't like it, or it looks confusing, or it looks the opposite of what God said. We can sometimes reject God's blessing because it doesn't come packaged the way that we want it to. Even in this, when he's saying you didn't consider David's life, he was a shepherd boy. He was rejected by his own father. He was thought to be of low worth and value. When Samuel came to anoint the new king, his father didn't even call for him. He called in all of his other brothers. And Samuel was like, do you have any other sons? Because God's like, not him, not him, not him, not him. And his dad was like, well, I mean, I have my other kid. He's out in the field. Like, he wasn't even considered as a son. Okay, he spent a lot of time alone, by himself, cultivating skills on his own, behind the scenes, no applause. Okay, his brothers kind of hated him. He goes to take them food on the battlefield, and they're like, basically like, give us our food, what are you doing here? And when he went to go fight Goliath, they were all like upset about it. Okay, like, he wasn't esteemed by his own family. You know, when he was running for years and years and years because Saul was trying to kill him over and over and over again. When Saul's position was rightfully his, he had been anointed as king 15 years before. It took a lot of time for him to go from, hey, this is happening, to it happening. And a lot of the stuff in the middle was not good stuff. It was not, well, what we would call good. Someone coming after your life, someone trying to destroy you, you're being on the run, you're basically a nomad, you're going from place to place, you're sleeping in caves, like, you're constantly being hunted. Like, then all of these people come and they're with you, and they're all like super negative, and like they're all the outcasts, and this is your company that you're keeping, this is the environment that you're in. Like, you know, you're like, it's not like a zippity, you know, there's hard things that he had to go through. And he had to even humble himself. Like, when he had the opportunity to kill Saul, he didn't. He was still after God's heart. He was still doing these things, you know. And then later, when he, you know, like, cheated and got Bathsheba pregnant and then had her husband killed and like had to lie, it was like it was scandalous. He went through really hard, scandalous things, really hard, treacherous things. He lost his baby because it was basically not a blessed birth. And like, he had to, you know, like, face the shame of when he was dancing in the streets and his own wife was like, ew, that's like totally got the ick. It's so gross. Ugh. Like, he had to face a lot of things, is my point. Like, it wasn't just about, oh, King David, and like, oh, he was so amazing and he was so great and he had all this abundance and all this power and authority and influence. Like, yes, that was true, but on the way there, it didn't look like that. That doesn't mean that the whole time he wasn't anointed. That doesn't mean that the whole time that the promise didn't stand. That doesn't mean that the whole time he wasn't actually a king. It just means that in the process of that thing coming to fruition, to come to fullness, a lot of other stuff happened that could have been misconstrued as, well, this has to mean, oh, well, this guy's trying to kill me. Well, then, like, you know, well, but the truth is that he couldn't get killed because God promised him something else. How could he take the throne if Saul killed him? But in the moment, it's easy to lose sight of those things because we look at our circumstances and say, oh God, well, my mortgage is late, or my bills are due, or my car payment's late, or I've missed my payment from my insurance, or my bank account is overdrawn, or like I don't have groceries, or, you know, I'm late on my light bill, or I lost my job, or I lost this relationship, or I lost this friendship, or fill in the blank. Hard thing. Situation that doesn't align with God's promise to you. He's speaking abundance and all you see is lack. He's speaking family and you don't have a single prospect. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you are talking to him about certain things and your life looks the opposite, that doesn't mean that the promise is extinct or that it's not real. It just means that the part of the promise that you're in currently doesn't look like it's going to, but that doesn't mean that you're not already in the blessing. Just like with David. David was King David from the day he was anointed, even if he didn't sit on the throne of Israel, even if he didn't have a royal court, even if he didn't lead battles, even if he didn't have all the luxuries at his fingertips that he could ever want. Even if at that point he didn't have influence. But the thing is he did have influence. We have to look at what we have in our hands. He had enough influence to be able to go up as a teenage boy and say, who's this Philistine? Let me at him. Because of what he had cultivated in the field, because of what had been planted inside of him, for what God placed inside of him, so that when the time came, he could carry out what God's plan was for him within that portion of the process of him becoming king, because he always was. Does that make sense? I'm hoping this makes sense. When God is speaking a thing and it doesn't yet look like that thing, that doesn't mean that you're not already in the blessing. This is why we can't refuse what God is bringing. That's why we can't complain about what God is bringing. Think about the Israelites in the desert. The reason that a whole generation didn't make it to the promised land, and like the second generation were the ones who went in there, is because, first of all, for the 40 days that Caleb and Joshua and those spies went into the land, they were there for 40 days spying it out, and God punished them for 40 years, 1 year per day that they were there, and then came back and complained about what he was trying to give to them. They rejected his promise because it didn't look like the way that they thought it was going to look. And he still required them to fight for the land once they got there and crossed over the Jordan. They still had to defeat the obstacles that were in the land, even though the land was theirs. We have to understand that sometimes we reject God's gifts because they come packaged differently than we want them. We reject his provision because it doesn't look like provision, it looks like lack. We complain instead of thanking him. We lament instead of rejoicing. We find something wrong with the situation instead of looking at, this is your hand, God, even if I don't understand it or like it. I see you moving in my life and I'm going to trust you regardless. This is the lesson he has taught me over the last year or so. And it has really taught me dependence on him, because every single day that I wake up, I am dependent on him for everything that I have. And the fact that I get to live my life the way that I do, I live in wealth because of the flexibility and the margin that I'm given every single day to be able to live the way that I do. It blows me away. It really does. It blows me away because it doesn't make logical sense that I should be able to live the way that I live based on the circumstances of my life. But it's his provision and it's his goodness and it's his grace. And it's me stepping into believing that what he has told me of who I am and how he wants me to live my life is actually true, and I'm allowed to, not only allowed to, but purposed to. I'm no longer rejecting his provision, even if it comes in weird ways, even if it comes in ways that don't make sense to me, even if what it comes looking like doesn't look like the thing I'm thinking it is. I'm just trusting that God is letting my life be what it should be, and that this part of my life is part of the bigger thing. It's part of the bigger promise, but it just looks like it looks right now in this section of the story, in this chapter of the story. You don't take a book and rip out a whole chapter because it doesn't look like the end, or because it hasn't reached the plot, or hasn't reached even the climax yet. Like, it's all part of the story that leads to the intended end, until it leads to the final page, the final sentence. And we are far from that in our lives. God is still working. He is still moving. He is still fulfilling his promises. And sometimes we want him to move a lot faster than he's going to move because we're impatient and we want things how we want them, and we want them on our timeline, and we want to feel comfortable, and we want certainty, and we want surety, and we want to be able to know that there is something that we can hold on to without having to wait or question or doubt or be, uncertain about. And that's just not how life works. We have to start trusting him that he's going to do everything that he's supposed to do, And that all our responsibility is, we're only responsible for trusting him, believing him, following him, doing what he's asking us to do. That's our responsibility. Our responsibility isn't to go and make things happen on our own and then just hope that he's like in that with us. He will lead you and give you instruction. And yeah, sometimes we do need to just like go and do the things he's telling us to do so that he can bless it. But what I'm saying is, we don't have to go and like figure out the mystery of like, no, he'll tell you what he wants you to do. But it takes us to take the action. It takes us to do the thing. It takes us to be able to use our brain that he gave to us and say, what do I have in my hands to use right now that will take me to where you're telling me to go? Like David, think about David in the fields. He was a shepherd who was in charge of sheep. Because lions and bears would come and try to kill his sheep, he cultivated a skill of defense. He cultivated a skill of protecting his sheep, which is really like a mirror to Jesus, right? Protecting his sheep, using his bare hands to kill wild animals, using rocks and a sling to defend his flocks. These were skills that he was able to then use in a bigger way when he fought Goliath. When he went into that situation, he was prepared because of what he did in the background on his own when he was by himself. No one told him to go do that stuff. He cultivated the skills that he could discern that he needed, even if he didn't know at the time he was going to go fight Goliath and kill Goliath with a stone. He had the understanding that God was his protector and his provider because of the time he spent with the Lord by himself, cultivating skills by himself, that when the time came, he was able to use what he already knew, trusting the God he had gotten to know to help him do what he's already done before in different situations on a bigger level. That part of David's life was still part of David's life when he fought Goliath, was still part of David's life when he was playing the lyre for Saul to calm his anxiety, was still the same David who ran from Saul when he was trying to kill him, who was still the same David when he allowed Saul to live a couple of times, actually, when he could have killed him, was the same David who, slept with Bathsheba and had her husband killed, was the same David who God says is after his own heart and was the ruler of Israel. It's the same David. It's the same story. It's the same king. His trajectory was always up. That doesn't mean that when he was a kid in the field that he wasn't already a king who was after God's own heart and a ruler who would be known for generations. So in this season, don't reject the blessing because it doesn't look like you think it's going to look. If you're waiting for something, don't wait idly. That's not what he's asking you to do. He's asking you to continue to prepare and live your life. He has placed things inside of you to cultivate. He has placed things inside of you to do in the season of waiting. Waiting is not idle. Waiting is active. You're preparing constantly to receive the thing that you know is coming, whether you know if it's coming soon or if it's coming down the road. A lot of us don't know when things are coming. We just know that he's saying that it is. It's not like he had a date on his calendar of Goliath is going to need to get killed on this day, so let me train up over here. No, he was just doing the things that he naturally needed to do when he had the time to do it. So what are you naturally needing to do? What is it in your life right now that needs your attention, needs your cultivation, needs your input, needs your, your skills to be honed, sharpened? What is it that God is asking you to pay attention to? What is it that he's asking you to build? What is it that he's asking you to heal from, let go of, rewire, repattern? What is it right now in this season that he is asking of you so that when what comes, because remember, you're already in it. You're already in the process. You're already in the blessing. The hardships, part of the blessing. The obstacles, part of the blessing. The things that look like they're not part of the blessing, part of the blessing. Even sometimes the warfare that we face, the things that the enemy brings up against us, it's still part of the blessing because we're still being taught, we're still being primed, we're still being trained, we're still being cultivated. But it's our mindset of how we look at it. If we look at everything as like something against us instead of something for us, that's going to keep us stuck. It's going to keep us stuck in loops. It's going to keep us stuck in a bunch of crap that we're not supposed to be a part of anymore. We're going to stay places too long because we're going to start being a victim instead of a victor. God said we are more than conquerors in Christ. He has already made us victorious because he's victorious and we are in him. So we can't look at things and say, woe is me. That's the wrong attitude. We don't complain. The Israelites complained because they didn't recognize they were already in the promise. They were on the way to their promise because they didn't like the route that they were being taken through. They complained and murmured and didn't believe that God was actually taking them anywhere. So they didn't get to see it. Don't let that be you. We can't complain. We can't look and be like, ugh, this isn't it. Ugh, this isn't what I want. Ugh. It's too easy. Instead, we need to start looking at everything in our lives, whether we think it's good or bad, because really everything is working out for our good all the time. He's taking everything that the enemy meant for our demise to make it for our good. He's going to turn around and use it. But we have to partner with him in that. We have to like actually believe that he'll do it and that that's the point of it all. And that we are actually able to say, no matter what comes, I'm content. Think about what Paul was talking about in Philippians. Whether I have a lot, whether I have a little, I have learned to be content in all situations. You know why he's saying that? Because when we're content in all situations, it's because we're trusting that the Lord is in charge, that he is sovereign, that he is taking us where we need to go. We don't have to worry about it. All we have to do is be present with him, be open to his instruction, be open to whatever he brings into our lives, and trust that he knows what he's doing and that he knows what's going on. He knows what he's promised us. He hasn't forgotten. But we don't always understand the things that we need to go through and learn and cultivate and experience. And when we look at it the wrong way, we end up taking ourselves out of position. We end up taking ourselves out, astray. And then we get mad at God. But it's like, no, we're looking at things the wrong way. We're looking at things as like something to complain about versus being like, I don't understand it, Lord, but I'm going to trust you and I thank you. This is really hard, Lord. I don't like it. But you know what? Your will be done. I'm going to just go along with you. And yeah, okay, the enemy's attacking me here, God, I rebuke it. I stand on what you've told me. I come out of agreement with this lie. I'm going to trust you. I praise you. That's a way better posture for us. It's going to help us get a lot more out of life if we do it that way versus looking at everything that we don't like and complaining about it or acting like God's not working on our behalf when he absolutely is in every single way, every single day, every single moment. He doesn't sleep. He doesn't get tired. He doesn't get annoyed like we do. He doesn't forget his promises. He doesn't say one thing and do another thing. He's not all talk. He doesn't give us empty wishful thinking or like lead us down a wrong road just because he's like, let me just toy with these people. That's not his character. That's not who he is. He doesn't play games with us. He doesn't play games with us. The enemy wants us to believe that he plays games, and that's when we get chopped up. We get tripped up in our own mindset about what's happening, and we look at things from the wrong perspective, and we look at things as not going our way when everything is going our way, even when it's hard, even when it doesn't look like what's going our way. Usually when things don't go our way, it's because we're being disobedient. And we're doing things that God's telling us not to. Or we're questioning what he's saying and we're doubting and we're fearing and we're reinterpreting things and we're trying to make it so that it feels more comfortable for ourselves. That's when we get into trouble. But God will take us into storms. He will let things happen. He will allow things to happen in our lives. He'll also allow us to make mistakes. But again, even those things he uses for our good. So everything that happens in life, we're supposed to take and look at as like, this is helping me become. This is helping me understand who I'm supposed to be and what I'm supposed to do in this life. But if we sit and we take time to complain or we look at things as like, ugh, woe is me or it's happening to me, and believe me, y'all, I've been there. I've been there for a lot of my life, much of my life. This is something that I've learned over the last small amount of time over the course of my whole life. But if we think about the Israelites and how they didn't understand that what they were in was actually the promise already, even if it was page 1 of the promise and there was 300,000 pages, okay? They were still in the promise even if they didn't get the end of the promise the way that they wanted it to look. They were still in it. If you're in a waiting season, if God's promising restoration, if he's promising different things that you're not seeing in your mind, you're allowing your circumstance to start dictating what you believe and how you act and how you show up. If you start thinking like, whatever, it's never going to happen. I'm just like, doesn't matter what I do today. Doesn't matter how I spend my time. This doesn't matter. You know, I've waffled for such a long time of like, what I do doesn't matter. Or if I don't do it perfectly, it's not going to happen. Those are both wrong. Those are actually both schemes of the enemy that I fell for a long, long time, and allowed that to take me out of position and get me off kilter and to like lead me astray and then get mad at God about it. That's my own problem. When God's saying, hey, I want you to experience these things in life, and then my life blows up, if I look at it as like always an attack of the enemy, or if I look at it as like, you know, some other thing, because if you think about it, like, God will take you through a miraculous moment and then lead you straight into a storm. The Holy Spirit did that with Jesus. Took him, like, he got baptized, the dove came out of the sky, and then he goes straight into the wilderness. He feeds 5,000 people. He feeds 4,000 people right after that. Miraculous works, and then he sends the disciples straight into a storm. It takes his sweet time to get there, like, to calm it. Like, the Lord will take us into a storm after doing something miraculous. So our life does not blow up because we did something wrong necessarily. Okay, I mean, it can, but a lot of times it's just part of the process. It's part of the promise. And we have to start understanding that, like, we can't wait to live our lives. Our life does not start when the promise arrives in its fullness. We're going to miss out on so much if we do that. The promise is now. The promise started as soon as you heard it. The promise began as soon as it came to your heart or your spirit. As soon as the Lord spoke it to you. As soon as it was proclaimed over you. It started then. You live your life in accordance to that being the thing, not waiting for that thing to happen for you to live your life. This is a huge lesson I had to learn. I've wasted so much time, precious energy, like waiting for things to happen and putting my life off versus realizing me living my life is what activates the thing for me to be able to see and experience more of what God is talking about. So if this resonates with you at all, please take this back to the Lord. Ask him for more clarification. Ask him for more guidance for your own life. But please, for the love, stop waiting for things to happen and come into fullness before you start actually living your life and experiencing what you're supposed to do and what you're supposed to like be called to, or what you're supposed to pour into. Stop waiting for your life to start when the thing comes, because you're already in the thing. Start living your life now so you can start experiencing more of the thing that you're already in. Okay? I hope this blesses you. See you later.